Of course, this is not financial advice and for entertainment purposes only.
Investors, welcome a very special guest, someone who has a unique story, Mr. Mark Kim. Now, he's on Blossom, which is a free investing app. Once again, it'll be in the link in the description of this video and in the pinned comment section. Now, Mark's bio on Blossom says that he has built an over 7-figure net worth in 7 years. He lives a FIRE long-term investor, or that FIRE lifestyle. He's a minimalist and a financial literacy advocate, here to help and inspire others. Now, Mark emailed me saying that at age 42, I was living paycheck to paycheck, and I had about $49,000 in my retirement accounts. In 7 years, I grew my net worth to $1 million and retired in early November of 2021, or should I say retired early. And since then, currently his net worth is at over $1.4 million in real estate, stocks, and bonds, and that he is slowly allocating more capital into YieldMax stocks, specifically MSTY and ULTY. Once again, Mark, congratulations on living that FIRE lifestyle, retiring, traveling, and having an over $1 million net worth. So I'm going to throw it back to you on how you feel about being on the channel and just being here in general.
I saw one of your videos. My friend sent it to me over Instagram, and it talked about ULTY and MSTY, and that's how I got really interested in the stock and doing my research. It would be nice if I could share my story, because my story is different. You know, I might not have, in terms of net worth, larger than like Terry, a little bit in between Terry and Paul, but you know, I started really late. And so if I can inspire one person or affect change, I think it's more than worth it to be on the channel.
First question for you is, can you introduce yourself and give us a brief overview of how you got started with investing and how you are here today with an over $1 million net worth?
It's societal norm, right? Just work hard, try to save. Nothing about investing, right? Because financial literacy was not taught in school. And, you know, I could barely balance a checkbook, and I knew how to get a credit card and stuff like that. But in terms of having financial goals, having a misperception about income, wealth, saving and investing, the stock market, real estate, I was just kind of living haphazardly, aimlessly, paycheck to paycheck. It was great, you know, when every 2 weeks that paycheck came in. I also had some expense reimbursements through travel. So it was kind of a false, you know, when that money hit all at once, I was able to, oh, let's go to the ATM, let's spend, let's shop, let's go out to dinner, let's do entertainment, fun stuff. I met this one person that we just had a dialogue, conversation, and it was a quiet conversation, an honest conversation about, why don't you own a home? Because, you know, at that time I was 42 years old, and I feel like in society terms, that's kind of late to not be owning a home and renting. From the outside in, you know, I looked like I was doing very well, right? I had at least a nice Lexus car, brand new. I was living in a luxury studio apartment in Miracle Mile, Los Angeles. Yeah, and I was wearing nice clothes. So I looked well off looking in, but inside, I was a wreck. It was very stressful in terms every 2 weeks I had to pay my bills. And I was trying to, you know, impress people. But in reality, I was very, I guess, scared and nervous about what the financial picture for me was. And so I thought I was behind. Having a certain amount of income and having lifestyle creep up, instead of saving, I just kept spending all of my income. And so we just had a dialogue, and she said, hey, you actually make pretty good money. You can save money. I'm like, well, really? So that kind of turned a light bulb in my head. Well, how do you save money then? Well, she told me, hey, you need to pay yourself first, create a budget, save every month. And our goal was to save $30,000 in 2 years. She was a real estate agent, so she had a little bit ulterior motives. You know, I was going to buy a house. I said, okay. After 2 years, I had about $55,000 saved up. So I actually almost double my goal of 30,000 because it was fun saving money. It was kind of addicting because that was so new to me. And after 4 years, I had $110,000. To me, that was insane amount of money because in my checking account 4 years ago, I only had maybe at most $14,000, and then we'll go back down to 500. So having 110K in my bank was like I had an actual baby. So wow, how do I like protect this baby? How do I grow this baby and make it even more? So I was looking at homes. I was looking at Cyprus, I believe, California. They had some new turnkey, beautiful townhomes, condos. I was looking at a 2-bedroom. It was 600,000. I was looking at a 3. I was like, you know what? The resale value is better if I got a 4-bedroom, even though I was single with no kids. So I was looking at a 4-bedroom, $900,000, and I'm like, wait a second. Let me just breathe and let me assess the situation. Took a step back and I decided maybe it's not the right time because also my job at the time, I was in maybe close to 7 years deep. And I saw the kind of the writing on the wall. So I thought maybe there's a chance of a layoff and I would be stuck with a 30-year mortgage or a 15-year mortgage. And so my other friend, Mark, he sent me these fire blogs. He said, hey, check out these blogs. I don't subscribe to all their methods, but maybe you'll find some value. So I read all of them, right? From JL Collins to Mr. Money Mustache. And I was fascinated. And so I thought, this is the way to go. I need to invest it into assets, whether it's a real estate, stocks, or bonds. And living in my primary residence would actually not be an investment. It would actually be just a mediocre investment, right? Unless I did some house hacking and had some roommates. I decided to dip in, and this was, I think I was turning 46. The first stock that I bought, I believe, was Amazon. I remember when I bought something in Amazon, 2005, they sent me the wrong item. And when I called, they said, oh, my apologies, keep that product. We'll just ship it the next day. I was like, wow, this is really good customer service. So this is a company that continue doing business with. And so that's how I started, just took a little baby steps and I learned a lot along the way and made a lot of mistakes as well. Year after year, I was investing like a robot consistently every month. I would max out my 401k. I would max out my Roth IRA. And then I had my savings rate was increasing from, 0%, 27%, 50%, as high as 72%. So I was living very frugally. The budget that I had was pretty tight, but I had room so I can overspend on the things that I really love to do was traveling. So some days or some months, I would grossly overspend a lot. And it was okay. I had an emergency bucket for that. And but I consistently invested. And year after year, and when COVID hit, a gut check, right? I was like, is this the right strategy? I was like, what is going on? I had conviction and a long-term mindset. So I said, I need to trust my gut. Let me put in more. This is on discount. This is like a Nordstrom summer sale. So let me get in there and keep doing it. And then after a year, it just went up. And I'm like, whoa, this was 2021. I'm not too busy with work right now. I know I read the Financial Samurai blog where he negotiated a severance. It's like, I think that's possible. Let me be proactive. I didn't want to mortgage my health and my time for a job. I loved my job. I loved the culture, the leadership. Really, my passion was to travel, like go in different Airbnbs, immerse myself in different cultures, try the different foods, meet different people, digital nomads and fire people. That's when I negotiated the severance and I was out. And I had a little cash reserve, very small, and I had a little bit of a runway. But then 2022, the market plunged and Luckily, they emailed me back 5 months later. They said, "Hey, we're trying to get a hold of you." I said, "Oh, really?" So I said, well, what's going on? They said, "We want you to come back as a contractor, negotiated the salary and the terms." And I went back to work. So I worked for about 6 months. I took 5 months of vacation off, and since I was a contractor, and then I came back. I worked another 3 months, and then that was it. And now I moved back to Chicago. I had a great opportunity to spend time with my aging parents for a few months. They got on my nerves, but it was a really good opportunity to spend time with them. And now I'm out traveling again. My portfolio was, I was thinking, let me do a kind of a hybrid strategy. Let me do the dividend income, the passive. The dividends, the yield was fairly low, right? You're looking at anywhere from what, 3-4% to high as 6 or 7%, like Verizon, Enbridge. Wow, is that as high as I can go? I probably might need some more cash in order to squeeze out more income. And then just over time, you kind of learn through YouTube and following people on Instagram that there's an opportunity or there's an avenue where you can go into higher yields where it's safe. And so I kind of learned about that and I started increasing my passive income stream. Just recently, I think about a couple of months ago, I was at 40K a year. It's like, oh, not bad. I could still be frugal. And then I learned about the covered call ETFs and then the YieldMax stocks and the ULTY. And the rest is history.
So my question is, what is your portfolio balance looking like right now?
So currently I'm at 119,000 a year in dividends. And
Wow.
I sold a lot of my dividend growth stocks and my index funds. And I'm now pouring it into covered call ETFs, YieldMax, like Tesla, NVIDIA, AMZ, and then MSTY and ULTY. I'm a little bit risk adverse. I know I've seen a lot of the folks on your channel, their allocation is pretty high. More than 10, 20, 30, 40%, and more power to them. But for me, I'm at 6% total on YieldMax and ULTY, and I'm looking to increase that to 10% for now and maybe more in the future.
Just so I'm aware of like the portfolio, it says that your top holding is VT So is it still VT and then SPACs and then bonds? Is that correct? Or is it shifted since then?
Yeah, I would say VTSAX is the top holding at like 137,000. I've got a 86,000 in my SPACs money market account. And then probably my next one is British Tobacco and Altria Group. That it's probably at 36,000 each. And my bonds, I know a lot of people don't like bonds. They want something more aggressive, but I like bonds because, I don't get it for the dividends or for the growth. I just get it because it's an anchor to my portfolio. When stocks are down, it should be inversely proportional. This is not what happened, I believe, in 2022. The stocks and bonds both went down, but in the future, I have a conviction that the bonds will go up when stocks go down. My bonds, it's about 30,000, and I'm kind of slowly selling those off. So
Mark's portfolio on Blossom has a lot of holdings in terms of the portfolio. It's dividend stocks, growth stocks, VT which is the mutual fund equivalent of VTI, as well as cash, money market funds, bonds, ULTY, VOO, MSTY, SCHD, JEPQ, Triple QM, and AMZ, NVIDIA, JEPI, Triple QI, BTCI, Coney, SPYI, etc. All of the high quality names, I'd say. What made you want to be a hybrid investor for the most part? I'm assuming it's because of the FIRE movement. So I want to hear more about, what is FIRE? What is your portfolio in terms of like achieving that FIRE lifestyle? Is your portfolio the best for the FIRE movement and the FIRE lifestyle?
Well, great question. I think the FIRE lifestyle and community, they just have one common theme, and it would be, how do I have my money that's saved up and invested? How does it work harder for me instead of me working hard all the time? And so I like the hybrid portfolio because instead of using all of the 4% withdrawal rule. There's market volatility. Also, psychology plays a big part of it. And even though I would say maybe 6 years of experience, I still have a difficult time in terms of knowing when to sell, knowing when to buy. Sometimes I don't sleep well at night. So I thought go more the dividend route. It's kind of a shield for you, right, during a recession as well. Some, yeah, during a recession might cut their dividend or stop their dividend altogether. But then, hey, those are the companies that I need to get rid of. But majority of them pay a dividend regardless of the price range and regardless of we're in a recession. So if they're a quality company, they have good cash flow, good debt to asset ratio, they'll continue to pay. And it's truly passive. So I've got this options. Like if I really wanted to work a job that I really wanted to do, I can actively trade my time and do the work. If I did not want to, I don't have to because I have a passive income stream that will support my lifestyle. And, FIRE, I would say majority of them, yeah, they're frugal, right? I think there's some other types of FIRE, right? There's fat FIRE that likes to not really budget and think about spending money, that they can freely spend the money. A lean FIRE where, they may be able to not work, but they have to be very frugal. But yeah, the common theme is have your money working harder for you.
Like FIRE lifestyle, it used to be, to my knowledge, you either have to invest so much money into growth index funds, your VOO, your triple QM, your typical broad market ETFs. And then it used to be now like dividend growth. So SCHD, DGRO, dividend stocks. And now it's like, wait, I could achieve that faster with cover call ETFs like, NEOS and YieldMax and whatnot. So do you think that the FIRE movement is shifting more towards higher income ETFs with those super high yields?
Yeah, I think so. I just discovered it a month ago. So, I've been in this FIRE community for about, I would say 7, 8 years. When I talk to some of the folks that I've connected with in the FIRE community, they do a little bit of covered call ETFs, but they don't even touch YieldMax, and they've heard about it, but they think it's too good to be true, right? And they're just focused on accumulating right now. So they're focused on their index funds. So, if I can share my story and how I kind of transitioned into this kind of portfolio and maybe experimentation, right, a little bit. But I do have some strong anchors, I have a solid portfolio, closed-end funds, BDCs, index funds, dividend growth stocks. But yeah, I think it's doable. And I think it's turning some heads because, it's insane, eye-popping distributions, especially with someone that might not have a large portfolio. And maybe they had like 300,000, 400,000, and they're getting passive income stream of what, 70K a year. I think it's opens up a lot of eyes and possibilities.
Now tell me why ULTY is your top cover call ETF, as well as your top holding being VT Sachs, and why not, I'd say VTI, because that's the ETF equivalent.
I think ULTY, it actually holds the actual underlying stocks, and they have about 15 to 30, if I'm not mistaken. And I actually own some of the individual stocks that's inside it. Covered call strategy, options. I don't have much experience on that, and I don't want to be on a computer. I'm on a computer like 4 hours a day. I think that's enough. I don't want to be on it more. I want to live my life. So I don't mind having the professionals kind of do a covered call strategy for me. I think ULTY is diversified. It's in my safe, aggressive bucket. And I have a lot of other stocks that I can hold my anchor if something happens with ULTY. So I'm not all in. So I'm diversified. I also like VTSAX, which is from my rollover IRA. So I combined like 3 old 401ks and I pumped it into VTSAX, and it compounds, I would say maybe 8% annually, give or take. And that kind of has been building some long-term wealth for me, and it's easy, right? You just hold it and it just compounds annually. I want income now, so I need to live on something. And so I think having the best of both worlds, right? You have VTSAX, which was a mutual fund, so I couldn't buy VTI, unfortunately, even though they're equivalent. That's why I have more VTSAX over VTI. You have that for a little bit of growth and then stability. And then you have the BDCs, MREITs, closed-end funds, preferred shares that have, would say, maybe 8 to 15% yield. I have some collateralized loan stocks like EIC, ECC, XFLT that is about 17 to 25%. And then some Roundhill, it's about 30%. Defiance, about 30% yield. And then I have the ultra yield, MSTY and ULTY at 120% yield.
So tell me about YieldMax, because you said some investors in FIRE might have said it was too good to be true, maybe a scammy product, or maybe it's way too good to be true. So what made you pull the trigger on YieldMax, and even just those higher cover call ETFs with like 15, 30, 40, 50% plus yield?
Yeah, I read it on Reddit forum and I was like, what is this? I was like, no, thank you. To me, if I felt like there were just some young people that didn't have much money in their investment portfolio and they're just going all in, trying to squeeze out as much income for themselves. But then I just kept reading. It had a place for early retirees and people who are retired right now that have quite a bit of investment income, but they just wanted to generate income out of that portfolio. And then one of my friends, he mentioned it, and I trust his judgment. And with that, I did some more research, and I said, you know what? I believe in these stocks that that kind of does the underlying, like NVIDIA, MSTR, Amazon. I hold all of those, and so I know long term they are going to grow. I know the market is volatile, so that helps with the generating the income off the premiums. It seemed like there was some NAV erosion, like they NAV decay, and people were a lot of haters out there. But I'm like, you know what? You're squeezing income out of it, so it really doesn't matter as long as it doesn't go to zero, right? And if you can return your investment within 14, 16, 18 months, everything is gravy. And I don't reinvest, I don't put it on drip. I just take it in as cash. And I will save a little bit to use as cash. I'll save a little bit for taxes, and then I'll save a little bit to reinvest. And I'll do that kind of manually. And instead of buying large amounts, I'll just look at the price range and I'll buy small amounts, dollar cost average that way. And so far, I think I bought it at the right time. I'm up like NVIDIA, I'm up huge. Tesla, I'm up huge. And I'm not even counting the cash distribution. So if you add that together, I'm up pretty big.
How do you live off your portfolio? Because you get dividends, you get distributions. When you get dividends and distributions, like how do you allocate it? How do you reinvest it? As well as in terms of making sure like your portfolio grows over time. So are you still depositing money, or are you still reinvesting it? Are you looking for more growth picks and whatnot? So how do you grow the portfolio over time, and how do you manage your distributions in terms of living off your portfolio?
So I have a taxable brokerage account. It's an individual account through Fidelity. And right now that's about 424K balance. And I'm squeezing about $50,000 in dividends. That I can take out anytime to live off of. If I wanted to reinvest a little bit, I can manually save a little bit and reinvest. 2 tax deferred accounts, the Roth IRA, which has about $80,000, and I'm generating about $14,000 in dividends. I can't touch that at this moment. I can touch it at age 59 and a half if I don't want to incur any penalties. I have the rollover IRA. Now that one is 437,000. Very similar to my individual brokerage. That one I'm slowly turning into a dividend portfolio. So I'm slowly selling off my VTSAX, which I think I'm up over 83%. So I'm up pretty big. And I've got 86,000 in cash in my money market, and I'm strategically buying covered call ETFs and the YieldMax stocks and certain growth stocks like Costco, Chipotle, Philip Morris, some undervalued, and I think it's a good price to jump in. Lamar Advertising, that's like about what, 5% dividend. I am now kind of figuring out what do I do with that rollover IRA. There's a process called the 72T. You can withdraw from your IRA and without the 10% penalty, and you'll be taxed just as ordinary income. I feel like that might be a good opportunity to kind of juice my income between the years that I sort of would really need it, and I would use that money to enjoy my lifestyle. What good is it if I'm 60, 65, 70, and I have all this dividends coming through, and I don't want to give it all to my niece and nephews. They didn't work hard for that money. It's my money. So I think my parents are still alive. They're my dad's 89, my mom 86, and I could use that money for maybe some home renovations, maybe increase their quality of life. And so I'm seriously looking into doing a 72T where I can withdraw from my IRA without the 10% penalty. I turn the drip off on almost everything. So I'm just going to manually reinvest. If there's a stock, whether it's a dividend growth stock or a growth stock that it's undervalued, maybe I might dabble, buy a little bit. But for the most part, I want to put it back into the higher yielding dividend stocks, covered call ETFs, and the YieldMax stocks, and ULTY.
In terms of taxes, is it a big concern? Because you have over six figures in dividends and distributions. So a lot of people in your shoes generating all these income from dividends and distributions want to know if taxes is a big concern for you.
Not at the moment. I mean, money is money, right? I'll figure that out. I know I can be more tax efficient, so that I'm learning right now how to be more tax efficient, maybe do some tax harvest loss to bring down my income at a certain bracket. That's not really important for me. If I need the income, I'm not generating the dividends, I'll gladly pay taxes.
So you went from $49,000 to an over $1 million net worth in 7 years. There has to be some sort of tricks you did in terms of like cutting expenses that were maybe unique. There has to be some sort of like hacks you did that some people want to know, from 50,000 to a million. Like, I can't do that in 7 years. Like, there's no way. But you did it. So I want to know everything about how'd you do it?
First thing was first. It was kind of a mindset shift, right? I had that budget on an Excel spreadsheet. And so I was able to see like the categories of where I was spending. And so I'm like, if I valued traveling, but on the shopping budget, always went over, then like my values and my money were not aligned. And so the first thing that I could really take control of is decreasing my expenses. Probably the biggest thing is like mortgage or rent, housing, right? And then transportation, car. But I went the opposite way. I went the little things. I did the baby steps. So I said, no more Starbucks. Let me go a cheaper coffee like Dunkin' Donuts. So from $6 coffee to about $3 coffee. And then after that, I was like, you know what? Let me buy instant coffee. Let me make coffee there because, I need the coffee for caffeine. So I did that. I learned how to cook. A dramatic change, because if you don't cook, sometimes you're busy, you're always ordering out, you're going to a restaurant, doing fast food. So I learned how to cook. And not only was that cut my budget, but I became more healthy in terms of nutrition. Then I looked at all of my subscriptions that I was not using, that maybe I can forego the cable. At that time, we had DirecTV and cable. And that was like costing me $100 a month. So I cut that. I also sold my couch because if I didn't have a couch, I won't be comfortable sitting down watching TV. So I sold the couch. I changed the lifestyle. I learned how to cook. And then, a kind of unique thing for me was I was in sales and I had a kind of an expense entertainment budget. So as long as I took a customer and we talked business, it was expense. So if it was something that I was craving for, like maybe steak or sushi, that was a little bit on the expensive side, I would just call one of my clients. I say, "Hey, how you doing? Would you like to grab dinner with me this Thursday?" And yeah, that would get my fix in terms of the food and the restaurants. I was spending a lot in I think restaurants and clubs and bars, and so I cut all of that out. And then slowly my income was also increasing at that time. So I would get a raise maybe every other year. I got a new job. I increased my salary that way. And I was able to negotiate my salary a little bit. And my income was increasing. My expenses were decreasing. And so that gap of money got wider. And that gap invested. It just got wide and just started investing everything. And then later, I was able to downsize. Instead of living in a studio, I found 2 roommates. That cut my budget from $1,800 a month in rent to $900. Now, that was kind of a change because, I was like, I don't know, 44, 46 at that time. And to live with 2 roommates, that was kind of weird. I kind of enjoyed my personal private space, but I had a goal. I wanted to fire it quickly. And so I did that. And a good thing about it was I had a roommate that was into Bitcoin. And so I learned a lot about Bitcoin through him. I could not understand it at that time, but that kind of paved the segue into another discussion with my other friend who's here in Thailand. His name is Dylan, and he is all about stock portfolio, Bitcoin, and crypto. And so with him, I was able to learn a little bit more and dip into crypto as well and Bitcoin. Yeah, I feel like certain situations or events that turn out to be bad, it can actually have a good outcome. And I also downsized my Lexus. I got a Prius, so I saved on gas. I saved in car payments. Eventually, I got that car paid off, and I had 0 car payments, and my rent was $900 a month. So again, all of that went to investing. And then I got a new job that was based in Dallas. So I was actually looking for a place to relocate that had a no state income tax because I was getting taxed like 10% in California. And this is crazy. So that was frustrating for me. I don't know, annoying me. So I was looking at Vegas, I was looking at Seattle, I was looking at Texas, and they said, "Oh, by the way, you need to move to Texas." I said, "Oh, really?" I said, "Okay. Do you have a relocation package for me as well?" And so I was able to negotiate that. I used that relocation money to invest as well. So I moved to Dallas, Texas in, I believe, July 2020. And so I found another room to rent. Instead of $900, it was $500 all in. So again, that extra savings went to my investment portfolio, and then no state income tax went into my investment portfolio. And so I was really at the highest edge of my income where I was making the most money at about 150K salary, and I was at the near lowest where I could be. I mean, I was so frugal. It's like I couldn't go below that. If I went below that, I'll be very unhappy. So that huge gap, I was able to do that. And within, the COVID happened and it recovered quickly, right? I don't know, recovered, 67 days or so, and it shot right back up. And that was when I looked at my portfolio. I said, you know what? I think it's time to get out. I might not be able to survive on it for 20, 30 years, but I'll figure out something to do later. I can at least travel live like a prince for 10, 12 years. And let me try that. I'm smart enough to build this portfolio up. I'm smart enough to figure out how to navigate around some of the, challenges that I'll face in the future. So I thought I don't want to mortgage my time and health any longer. I want to travel right now. So I was able to do that.
In 7 years, you became a millionaire. What do you have to say to people who maybe they're in their late 30s, 40s, 50s who don't think they could achieve that? I'm sure when you were, Lexus, nice clothes and a good lifestyle, I'm assuming, but net worth, you probably had, we used to like what, $49,000, gave up some stuff, you cut back on stuff, and now look at you, $1 million net worth plus, you got over six figures in dividends and distributions. It's almost like super inspiring.
I think they need to have a light bulb moment, right? If they don't have that light bulb moment, they're not going to change. They could watch all the inspiring videos and read all the books, and they're in the same spot. So it's usually maybe a self-limiting belief, or they have some sort of negativity, or they have a misperception about money, wealth, income. So if they can just get more knowledge on that, I think a great book was The Millionaire Next Door. That really opened my eyes to see who the really wealthy, the stealth wealth people are. And it wasn't the folks that had a huge 5, 6 bedroom, $1 million home. It could be, but usually it's probably not. And they weren't driving a Mercedes. They had probably a Honda Accord, a Toyota Corolla, and they had a modest home in a modest neighborhood. And they had at least $3.6 million net worth. It's a mindset shift, right? So you're overcoming some of the misperception of what society tells you what money is and income and wealth is. And then if you overcome that, then you decide, okay, if I can do it, if it's possible, then what's the process? So they need to figure out what the process is, right? Pay yourself first, make it automatic, invest like a robot once a month without emotion, without fail, continuing to invest and understand what you're investing. If you don't understand it, you don't understand crypto, Bitcoin, don't invest in it. If you don't understand YieldMax stocks, don't do it. Invest in what you understand. So, and then baby steps. When I first started, I wasn't thinking about retirement. I just wanted to buy a house, right? I want a down payment. And so it just kind of evolved organically, month after month to understand the power of compounding. You read about it, you hear people talk about it. Until you experience it, you really can't fathom or comprehend what the power of compounding can do for you. It's like you're at the gym and you're the biggest, strongest guy in the gym, right? It does the heavy lifting for you. So it may take a few years for you to learn what the power of compounding can do for you and for your portfolio. But I would just take a little baby steps. I would maybe dabble in a couple of dividend stocks that you understand. Maybe Costco, you shop at Costco or you shop at Target and they have great customer service. Okay, let me invest in that company. And you can receive your dividends every month or every 3 months. And that's kind of tangible, right? Is, hey, I'm investing in this company and I get some form of profit revenue from that. And just take little baby steps and then just learn, keep learning. For me, I'm always learning. So I learn from 25-year-olds that don't invest. And I learn from, 45-year-olds, 50-year-olds. I learn a lot of things and just continue to evolve. And before you know it, you might not be able to retire, but after 2, 3 years, if you're stuck in a bad situation or a bad toxic workplace, maybe you say, hey, it's time for a sabbatical. So maybe, early retirement is not the major overarching goal, but maybe your medium short-term goal is just to have $50,000 in the bank instead of zero.
While you went from, that 0 to $1 million in 7 years, there's got to be some sort of time where you were like, man, like I might be down and out. This is so hard. I can't do this. I want to go back to my old lifestyle.
I don't know if I was ever down and out. track my net worth every month and every year, and to see that grow was really exciting for me, even though, yeah, I didn't have the latest watch, I didn't have the latest clothes. I had just I kind of looked like Steve Jobs, right? I had a couple of shirts and jeans, and just to see that net worth grow was so exciting for me. Coming from paycheck to paycheck with only 49,000, to see it like compound so fast, it was really exciting for me. But I did have one, I guess a dark moment would be a punch in the gut. My sister emailed me or texted me that our parents are in some sort of HELOC loan. I had no idea what that was, which means home equity line of credit, $67,000 in debt. So that was a real punch in the gut. So I have to kind of unravel that. What is that? How did they get into that situation? And my dad was paying interest only for 15 years. So he actually paid maybe over $20,000. The debt did not touch, it did not go down. I was kind of knee deep into my FIRE movement, and that was a little depressed, frustrated, angry. Why does this have to derail me? But, I took it in stride, took a couple of days to let it subside, and then I just attacked the problem. I put in a PowerPoint. Okay, this is how much I have. This is what I can sell. My sister can pitch in a little bit. And the great thing that came out of it was I was preaching to my sister to invest in individual brokerage account because she had like 70,000 in a bank. And through that PowerPoint and family meeting, she was able to trust me and she was able to invest. That was November 2021. And then fast forward, I think January 2024, I was able to pay all of that debt out. And so that was really just exciting for me to help my parents get out of debt. And then, yeah, my net worth suffered just a little bit. Yeah, it could have been 1.5, 1.6, but, that really doesn't matter. So
Downsize and whatnot, like, because society now is just spending and it's all about being flashy and the latest cars, the latest watch, and the biggest house. So like, what are your thoughts on like how society is right now, maybe in terms of like just going into all this debt to maybe just show some sort of lifestyle that maybe makes them feel good, but now like kind of like what you experienced and then temporarily downsize and now you're thriving in your retirement and everything financially.
get more knowledge. I think people have that perception of wealth, what wealth is. So maybe they didn't come from wealth, right? Like me, we're just very like lower middle class. And when you start your job, you start making some money, you're like, oh man, I need to spend it. I deserve it. So read The Millionaire Next Door, read The Psychology of Money, just keep reading and learning. And it's a mindset shift. Figure out what's important to you, what you value. If you can figure that out, say yes to it and say no to everything else. In that journey, and you're kind of discovering, you can realize, like, for example, when I was traveling last year, I traveled very light. So I have a little garment bag and a backpack. And I have maybe 5 t-shirts, 3 boxers, 2 jeans, 1 jacket, and 2 sweatshirts. And so during my travels, I would actually wear maybe the same outfit 2 days in a row, or I just recycle them. And you know what? No one said anything. They're like, oh man, you wore that 2 days ago. They didn't say anything. And I was like, you know what? This is not that bad. As long as I have some classic clothes, shirts, jeans, it really doesn't matter what I wear, right? And so I kind of learned that. That helped me to realize, like, hey, trying to impress others with my clothes, it's not that important for me. And then even driving a fancy car, like learning that maybe somebody that's next to you that's driving that, I don't know, BMW, they may be drowning in debt, right? So I may be driving the Prius. I got a BMW next to me, but my bank account is probably, much larger than his. Just a little bit of mindset shift. And as you realize that you focus on what's really important to you and you go after that, then that really helps to get away from materialistic things. And living in LA and Orange County for like 21 years, I learned the materialistic society there was a little bit more pronounced where I was living in the Midwest when I was living in Illinois. Met a girl at a club, and the first thing she mentioned was that how much I made for a living or what car I drove. And so that was really, really weird. And so I realized like I don't want to be like that kind of person. I want to be humble and I don't want to judge others for what they have. I rather focus on your inner beauty, right? Your personality and being kind to others. I'd rather do that than focusing on materialistic things.
Now, give me some goals. Do you have any 5-year goals, 10-year goals with your portfolio, with life? You look quite young. You have plenty of life ahead of you. So I want to hear all about your goals.
Right now, I'm traveling. I just started August 7th. So I've got a 9-month travel plan. I will be in Jakarta today. I have a flight, I think, in like 5 hours. And I'll be back in Thailand. I'll be in Vietnam, Taiwan, Tokyo, and then Korea. I'll be back in Chicago. I'll see my parents for maybe a good 4 to 5 months. And then from there, I wanted to kind of renovate a little bit of the home. It's like a 1963, really old home. So I kind of want to help renovate that, so improve their quality of life and just spend time with them because I'm not sure how long they'll have to live. And so I think it was a great opportunity to see them. I just finished my trust and will. That was on like my bucket list for a long time. I was able to do that. So I got that squared away. And I think for 2026, I would probably stay in Illinois and spend time with my parents. 2027 is I'll start looking for the next travel. I think I would love to visit Europe. I've never been to Europe, Spain, Italy. So I would like to do that in 2027. And then I would like to increase my dividend income to at least 150K. It might happen real soon. So we shall see. And then just continue focusing on my health and my mental well-being. I like to exercise and continue to do that and continue to learn and grow.
Like, has your portfolio really helped you achieve these financial achievements that they've achieved so far?
Very happy with it. I could sleep well at night, and I know I can generate more income. Like I can go even higher if I wanted to. And so, and even if the income does come in, I'm not going to spend all of it, right? So I'm going to reinvest a little bit, save a little bit, and reinvest some more so I can continue to generate long-term wealth. So, but for me, it's not my net worth. It's not how much I have. It's if I have enough to live on and maybe a little bit savings for the future, right? For maybe long-term healthcare and stuff like that. So, I don't want to hoard. I want to have more of an abundant mindset and be able to know that I can adapt if a challenge or problem happens. I can always go back to work. The fire police won't put me in jail. Say, hey, you're retired. You can't go back to work. I can go back to work. I did a freelance job this summer for 10 weeks, and I earned about $8,000. It was hard work. I was like, man, working this hard is really hazardous to your health. I'm pretty confident that this portfolio will last me for a long time.
My question is like, what is your purpose right now with just in general with like life and like giving some hope to people who might not have a lot of money and they want to achieve what you have achieved, and maybe you want to have like financial literacy, financial freedom one day that you have achieved as well. So what are some words of wisdom to people who want to achieve financial freedom?
Living my life, going to school, the friends that I had when I was young, we were never taught that. And we shouldn't use that as an excuse. Now there's readily resources available, right? YouTube, Reddit, Google, ChatGPT. There's no more excuses, right? So just learn about it. Instead of giving your money to a financial advisor and not worrying about your money, you should worry about your money. Kind of overcome that stressor of your life. Because once you overcome that financial picture, you have much more mental space to challenge yourself to learn and grow in terms of relationships, your health, mental well-being, and you have more opportunities to grow. I would just say I was an ordinary guy that was really not too smart in school. And I just worked a regular job and I was able to network and increase my income. I think that 9 to 5 job is just a means to achieve your goals. You just save and invest, and it'll take time, right? If it's something fast and quick money, I think that could be a scam. I think wealth is built over time, right? So just take your time month by month. And if I can do it, I mean, coming from, wow, 49,000 and to see my net worth, sometimes it's surreal for me. And that journey was really transformative for me. So my goal is, how do I impart some knowledge and give some inspiration and hope to people like me, like 10 years ago when I was living that paycheck to paycheck lifestyle. And I think I'm so happy, and it's a privilege to be on your channel. So I think if one person can say, hey, man, that Mark guy, he looks like an ordinary guy. I'm smarter than him. If he can do it, I can do it too. So,
Any last words for our viewers, because we're going to be winding down the episode? Anything you want to plug in? Anything you want to shout out for? I know you have Instagram and a Blossom username, so I don't know, like, what else do you want to find you at?
yeah, you can reach me on Instagram or on Blossom. I have the same username, which is Mark the Life Saver. So, as my friend Paul said just a couple of weeks ago to me, we're in the school of Earth. If you have strong desires and big goals, the universe will provide events, situations, and people to come into your way so you can learn and grow. And the stronger your desires are, the level of incremental growth is huge. And have convictions, patience, optimism, and a long-term mindset when you're investing.
Now, if you guys like this video, please give it a like, because this cute puppy did. And don't forget to check out our last interview right here on your screen. I love you guys so much. Crush in the stock market, and take it easy. Peace.